Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast for our second Football Friday of the season as we get ready for week number 2 here on the Bet Rivers Network. Now, I've said this many times, and you hear it a lot of places, but it's always true. The overreaction to week 1 in the NFL is extraordinary. It never lessens. The roof falls in. The thing is, people wait so much for football. They get really nothing of consequence out of the preseason. So when they finally get a real game, they make huge declarations off one game. And it's silly, but it just happens all the time. Now, there are things that do happen quickly in this league. Injuries. Look at San Francisco. Lose their wonderful tight end, lose their quarterback at least probably for a couple of weeks. That's devastating. Have to send their kicker goodbye. That's a devastating change in their team. And that obviously has to be dealt with. But when it's just an opinion of performance, remember, a lot of guys have to work themselves back into shape, and units have to work themselves back into sync. So before you make a declaration, oh, this unit's no good, this unit's terrible, this unit's not going to improve, remember that you have pieces coming together. It's the first time everybody's playing 4 quarters. They have to work themselves into shape during the September heat. It should be taken, and sometimes it takes teams 3 and 4 weeks. Now, some teams don't have 3 or 4 weeks, and they need to get it going right away, and game 2 feels like the end of the world. It does this week in Detroit. It does this week in Miami. It does this week with the Giants in Dallas. It does this week with Houston. Because the expectations are running high and there's pressure on the coaching staffs in a lot of those spots. Giants head coach and the general manager under the gun. Miami head coach under the gun. Atlanta head coach under the gun. Houston head coach under the gun. We can go on and on and on. Okay. If you get a game with two teams that are both 1-0, hey, it's Shangri-La. You don't hear anything about that game this week. There'll be no ultimatums. There'll be no backs to the wall. There'll be not, because they both won their opening game. I'll give you an example of that. How many people were so critical of Jacksonville before the season started? They win their opener. Now, you don't hear a word about them as they get ready to go to Cincinnati this week. Not a word, because they won their opener. That's how quickly things move in the NFL. Now, when you look at certain things, you see how compelling the game is. Cowboys hosting the Giants this week. Cowboys lost a tough opener. They played better than a lot of people thought, except for a couple of really outrageous lamb drops. They could have easily won that game. They didn't. So now they need a win, just like the Giants need a win. But everyone's looking at the Giants, waiting to see when they're going to make the quarterback change. Hey, the Giants did not bring Russell Wilson in to play one game. They did not pay him $10.5 million, of which $10 million is guaranteed. $8 million was a signing bonus. They didn't give him $10 million to play one game. I told you from the beginning the Giant quarterback room made no sense. It still made no sense. And the Giants elevated the anticipation and the talk by making Dart the number 2 quarterback. If they had made Jameis the number 2 quarterback, there wouldn't have been as much sensationalism in the game 1. Was Russell Wilson bad in game 1? Yes, he was. Whether the offensive line worse? Yes, it was. But Wilson looked like a quarterback who was trying to keep himself healthy more than make plays, and that's dangerous. And that will get him to the bench. If his eyes aren't downfield and they're looking at the pass rush, that will get him to the bench quicker, because this coach knows once his team, which isn't very good, goes up against this early schedule, the only salvation he has to get his job back for next year or to stay as the Giant head coach is wrapped up in a rookie quarterback. Now, the question is, when do you bring him in? You got people who want to bring him in now. To bring him in now behind that offensive line, you're not going to get what you want out of him. And I think the head coach is too smart to do that right now. First of all, as I said, they did not bring Russell Wilson in, and he would be a nightmare in that quarterback room if they benched him. Nightmare. They'd have to release him. That's how bad it would be. And who's to say they wouldn't first go to Winston, who is a fearless quarterback who can make plays? He also makes a lot of mistakes. Well, Winston will throw TD passes. You can count on that. He'll also throw big interceptions. You can count on that. But here's the thing that is a real pitfall, and I've said it to you all year, folks, for the Giants, the schedule. This week, Dallas, a winnable game. No Parsons. Goodbye in Green Bay. Bland now out. Okay, just gave him $90 million. He's out. Holes in certain parts of the team. No dynamic running game. Yes, a big-time receiver. And Dak will get the ball there. But Cowboys aren't anything special, and the Giants have a chance if they play well, if their pass rush plays well, if they force a couple of turnovers, if they don't make big mistakes, and they get anything out of the offensive line, they can stay in this game this week. They could even win this game this week. This is a winnable game. There aren't many. So Wilson's playing this week. You know that. I'm not saying he's going to finish the game. Let's see what happens. You never know who's going to finish the game. But then come the Chiefs on Sunday night. Now, the best the Chiefs can come here is 1-1, and the Chiefs, who play the Eagles this week, have not been 0-2 since 2014. If they lose to the Eagles this week, the Giants are going to get the Chiefs on Sunday night at 0-2. Good luck. Followed by the Chargers. Then the game in New Orleans that everyone will circle now and say, oh, that's it. If they're 0-4, that's the game. At New Orleans, winnable game, all true. But have you looked past the New Orleans game? Let's say you send the kid to New Orleans. Always a noisy place to play. But a winnable game against a bad team. They play 4 days later against the Eagles on Thursday night. So that means if you put that kid in the same game, he's got really one practice to prepare for the Eagles. Then after the Eagles, what does he get? He gets a trip to Denver. And then after the Denver trip, what does he get? He gets a trip to Philly. So you look at that Saint game and say, that's the spot. Yeah, but look what's right behind it. Eagles, Denver, Eagles. Good luck. And then if you think it gets easier, Niners at Chicago, Packers at Lions. The most logical place if they can hold the fort, and they're not going to win a whole lot of games against that schedule, whether it's Wilson, whether it's Winston, whether it's Dart, okay? I told you it's one of the roughest schedules for the first 12 games I've ever seen. The last 5 games in December into January are when he should really play. If you're thinking about this from a standpoint of production, in terms of feeling good about next year, and in terms of the coaching staff. At the Pats, week off, can do a lot of work with them. Home Washington, home Minnesota, at the Raiders, home Cowboys. That's the underbelly of what is the toughest schedule in the league this year, and one of the toughest schedules I've seen in a long time. So there is no easy spot for Dart. And if you think he's just going to come in there and wow everybody and start to win, then you don't know much about football. Because that offensive line has to get a lot better. And things have to get better. And they got some teams on there that they're just not nearly as good as. Plenty of them. So while everybody goes down and all they hear about now is Dart. That's all you're going to hear. Understand the plan. And Dable left the door open in that press conference. I don't know that he meant to or he didn't, but either way, it was a mistake because they didn't bring Wilson in there to play one game. Because if they did, why would they pay him $10 million guaranteed dollars to play one game? If they were going to do that, they could have just brought in Winston and played him. Like I said, the quarterback room made no sense from the beginning. And there's a very good chance it could get the general manager and the head coach fired. Anybody thinks they know exactly how this is going to play out with the Giants right now? They don't. Now, the Jets had a lot of positives, but there's no moral victories. They could beat the Steelers. They should have beat the Steelers. They caught the Steeler defense when it was not nearly where it will be in a month from now. They ran the ball well. Hall, who everyone had in the doghouse, played well. Fields played very well. They did a lot of positive things. They did some things positive on defense, but they showed some really big holes on defense. Now they get Buffalo in week 2. Play well and lose is not an option. And did he send a message by cutting a guy who made a big mistake? Yes, but he also told you, I didn't cut him just because of that. There were other reasons why I cut him, but he also sent a message. He wants to play this tough guy thing, and that will work as long as they get some wins. If they don't get wins, that will not work long term because he doesn't have the coaching gravitas to do that. Run guys out of the league when he hasn't done anything himself as a head coach. He can do that to a kick returner. That only goes so far if they don't get any wins. They need to get results, especially if you're going to take extreme measures like that. But they showed you some positives. Let's see how they do against Buffalo in week 2. Now, Buffalo won a game, as we know. Listen, there were a couple of games last week that if you watched them, you were still wondering how the other team won. The Bears never should have had that game turn on them as they did. They're up 11 points. They're deep in Minnesota territory, and they wind up losing the football game. Late in the third quarter, they're deep in Minnesota territory. They don't score there. Penalty, of which they had 10,000. They had 122 penalty yards. Now, as I've told you, 100 penalty yards is a touchdown. They had 122. You can't give teams 8 or 9 points in penalties. And they got a bad call on a third down pass interference. I think they would have gone on 4th and 1 anyway, so I'm not saying they wouldn't have kept the ball there, but that was a turning point in the game, that play. And then the Ravens were treating the Bills like they were a high school defense. And then the game just turned on a turnover and the fact that they couldn't get out of their own way on pass defense and gave up, enough yards in the fourth quarter to actually just, floor you. That's how many there were. They got hit for almost 400 yards passing in the game. They got hit for over 250 in the fourth quarter. And they wound up losing the game to the Bills that they had completely in command. Ravens will be fine. This is not about the Ravens. And the Ravens have had a history under Harbaugh of blowing big leads, as we all know. It was a big comeback win for the Bills, and now they get the Jets. No team was more disappointing in week 1, and there were a lot of them that you could put up and nominate, like the Dolphins, but nobody was more disappointing than the Lions were. Everybody wondered, how are the Lions going to do with the pieces that were missing? How are they going to do losing both coordinators and losing multiple coaches on offense, multiple coaches on defense from a team that had really been starting to be a juggernaut going into last year's disappointing loss to Washington in the playoffs? Now the coach comes out this week and says, hey, Ben Johnson and I are friends as the Bears come into Detroit, but we Have to. And in week 2, he said it, have to win this game. If the Lions wanna be the Lions, they have to beat up on the Bears this week. If they don't, it says a lot about the Lions. We know the Bears is still a very much a work in progress. Jaguars and Bengals. Cincinnati was very fortunate to win. Again, they played terribly in Cleveland. Again, they didn't look good early in the season. Will they be better this week against Jacksonville? Yes, they should win this game. If they don't and Jacksonville ever gets to 2-0, that will be a very big surprise. Rams and the Titans. Rams beat Houston in week 1. They go to the Titans in week 2, and the young quarterback, they will win again. And the Rams are a very dangerous team. I had 2 Super Bowls this year that I just couldn't make my mind up. Baltimore Rams, Baltimore Green Bay. Those were the 2 I had, and I kept going back and forth on. So I played both of them as futures, the 2 of them, because I couldn't make up my mind between the Rams and Green Bay. And when I did it, I was shocked that everybody was on Baltimore. I thought there'd be more Buffalo. I thought there'd be more Kansas City. Uh, Everybody was on Baltimore. And they're good, but they have, as they proved the other day, some work to do. Pats lose to the Raiders. They come back. They now get the Dolphins. The Dolphins were the punching bag for week number 1. They got beat up more than the Lions. They got beat up more than the Giants. They got beat up more than anybody in the league because they were that bad against the Colts. Tua was awful. Defense was awful. Coach doesn't know what he's doing. Players disrespect the coach. Tyreek Hill wants to be traded. Blah, 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 blah. And now they go week 2. And do they need to stabilize the ship? Yes. There are a couple of places where they desperately need a good performance. Miami's one, or there could be big changes there before the World Series if things don't move in the right direction there. Will Tyreek Hill be traded? Honestly, I think the only place he'll wind up going is Kansas City. And if Kansas City feels they have problems getting Rice back in the fold and getting Worthy, and Worthy's injury is worse than people think, if it is, do not be shocked. Do I think Tyreek Hill is through? I do not. Do I think he'd be rejuvenated in Kansas City and Mahomes? Absolutely. Now, he's looking at a domestic abuse charge. He's got all kind. We know the litany of his problems off the field. He makes big money. He's a malcontent, but he also is a big-time game-breaking player who the Chiefs thrived with. Like I said, if he's going anywhere, I think he's going to Kansas City. Niners win, but they're devastated by injuries. They cut their kicker. They lose Kittles. Purdy's hurt. Now, they can hold the fort as long as they have McCaffrey. They can hold the fort, but obviously they're going to have to play. They're playing Jones, a quarterback, probably this week. I don't think Purdy's playing. He's got a shoulder injury. He's got a toe injury. So looks like he's out, and Kittles is out probably 5 to 7 weeks. Devastating week 1 for the Niners. Saints, they're rebuilding. Without a quarterback, the kid from Louisville, who a lot of people liked, and the Giants liked too, and they liked Dart better. Will he eventually play? We'll see. Saints were competitive, but they're going to lose a lot of games. Seahawks lose a tough opener. They get the Steelers. Rodgers, 4 touchdown passes. Interesting game. See what the Steelers are going to do. The Steelers are going to win games with Rodgers, and Rodgers is going to do pretty well there. As you saw in week 1, I think it will continue. Browns could have easily won the game against the Bengals. Obviously, they would have had the lead in the final minutes. Would they have held? They probably would have, the way the game was going. Ravens lose a game that they win 99% of the time, but they didn't win it. They ran the ball all over the place and didn't win it. Now Flacco goes back to Baltimore. Will that matter? No. I mean, it's obviously he goes back. He won them a Super Bowl. He played brilliantly that year in the postseason. I mean, he had one of the great postseasons of all time that year. Just go look it up. He had one of the great postseason runs anyone ever had. Cleveland is going to have trouble traveling. They're going to have trouble playing this team. They're going to get worn down in this game. They're going to give up some big plays, especially in the second half. And I got to figure that off a loss in week one, even though it's a division game and you don't like laying big points in a division game, I got to figure the Ravens are going to roll in this game. I know they're a heavy favorite. They're 11.5-point favorite, but the only question is whether they win it by 10 or win it by 21. Broncos, a winner. Colts, a winner. Daniel Jones. Now, some people want to minimize what Daniel Jones did last week. Unfair. Was he brilliant? No. Did Miami make it easy? Yes. But he scored on every drive. Yes, he had a better offensive line. Yes, he had a tight end who's going to be a star. Yes, he had a running back who is a star. Did he have to run in the game? No. He ran because he likes to run a little bit. So he had a couple of 1-yard touchdowns. Did he run a lot? No, he ran for 26 yards. Did he run for his life? No, he scored on every drive. 7 drives, 7 scores. But he made some really good plays. He made some good decisions. He made some good throws. And considering how he has been treated, that was a very good performance. Let's see him back it up against the Denver defense. Tyler Warren, as I told you, is going to be a big star. First game, 7 catches, 71 yards. He is the real thing. He's big, he's strong, he can block, he runs good routes, he's good after the catch, he's got great hands. There's nothing not to like. He's going to be a superstar tight end. There's no question about it. Interesting game. Broncos, well coached, good defense, already have found their quarterback. Definitely a playoff contender in an unbelievable division. When you think about it, now I heard someone say the last week, I think it was Al Michaels who said it. No, I think it was Tirico. Take that back. I think it was Tirico. I'm not sure which one said it, but I think it was Tirico. That the AFC West coaches might be the best collection of coaches in one division in the history of the NFL. Now, remember, all 4 have been to Super Bowls. 3 of the 4 have won Super Bowls. Sean's won a Super Bowl. Harbaugh's lost a Super Bowl. Harbaugh's won a national championship in college at Michigan. Pete's won a Super Bowl. Andy's won multiple Super Bowls. Andy, Carroll, right? Harbaugh, Sean. Andy's a lock immortal Hall of Famer. How many of them are Hall of Famer? The reason why I bring this up, let me take you back to the NFC East. And I'll take it pre-Jimmy Johnson because it puts me in even more rarefied air. Not that Jimmy Johnson isn't good, but this is a step even bigger. Take it back to, say, 1985, 86. 86, 87. Buddy Ryan in Philly, good coach, great coordinator, historic coordinator, not a great head coach. Never won a playoff game, but did win games. Did take his team to the playoffs. Had a winning record. The other 3 coaches, all-time greats. Parcells, multiple Super Bowl winner, Hall of Fame coach, all-time great. Gibbs, multiple Super Bowl winner, all-time great. Landry, without question, one of the greatest coaches in the history of American sports. Landry, Gibbs, Parcells, Buddy Ryan, Andy, Peyton, Harbaugh, Carroll. NFC East wins because of the gravity of the 3. Buddy pulls him down a little. He didn't win a championship, but he did win as an assistant with the Jets, and he had a lot to do with their pass rush. and their defense, and he won as a almost co-coach. That's not fair to Dicker, but he was almost the co-coach of the Bears, the great '85 Bears. And he's the one who didn't win a Super Bowl. Didn't never won a playoff game, as a matter of fact. I'll go with the '85 group or the late '80s group before Jimmy Johnson gets to Dallas. Panthers and Cards. Panthers were really bad against the Jaguars. Everyone thought their quarterback had made big strides late last year. Well, he had a bad first game. It's one game. Don't go crazy. One game. Cards, they got a lot of talent. Got a lot of talent. Big tight end in McBride. Big wide receivers. Solid running back in Connors. Big wide receiver in Harrison. They got a lot of talent on that team. But they're a hard team to figure. They really are. The marquee game of the afternoon, the Eagles have had 10 days off since their win against the Cowboys. Now they go to Kansas City. Big 4 o'clock game against the Chiefs. A little banged up. We know about the collision between Worthy and Kelsey. Chiefs, their defense didn't look great. The Chiefs still working on that offensive line. Banged up at wide receiver. The Chiefs have not opened 0-2 since 2014. A lot of people think the Chiefs were just lucky last year. They took a big step back. Let's see. Is this a revenge game? Hey, anyone who thinks you can get revenge for the Super Bowl in week 2 in September is a fool. You can't. You'd like to win. The game bothered them. Andy made the statements this summer that he was very, very happy that his team took responsibility for the loss. That his team understood that they had taken a step back last year, especially that they had to rebuild that offensive line and that they had gotten their rear ends kicked in the Super Bowl. And he took responsibility for that, and they were mad about it. And that they were not satisfied with what they had done in the big picture, that they still were hungry. Let's see it. Let's see it against the Eagles on Sunday. Chiefs are actually underdog by 1.5. Sunday night, Falcons against Minnesota. These teams both have talent. Now both have young quarterbacks, skilled receivers, skilled backs, skilled players. You know what the difference is? Coaching. Minnesota is a really well-coached team. The young, bright head coach who was a quarterback, who has a good history, is a terrific play caller, has a reputation as a quarterback whisperer. And on defense, he's got a really good defensive coordinator in Flores who is aggressive and very good at what he does. All right, is he a guy who has a chip on his shoulder about his time as a head coach? Yes, but he is a very, very talented coordinator. While Atlanta cannot get out of its own way. Over the last 2 years, Atlanta has lost more games that make you bang your head against the wall than any team in the league. And if I were the owner, I would not have a lot of patience with Raheem Morris. I would not. Monday night, 2 games this week. Bucs come off a win. You know why? Because Atlanta got a break on the goal line, got the lead, had the lead, and all they had to do was get a stop. And what happens? Tampa comes right down the field and scores a touchdown, misses the extra point. So they're only up 3. So Atlanta got back down the field, missed the field goal. So the game doesn't go to overtime. Tampa has done some good things. Their quarterback has become a very solid player in this league and a dynamic, swashbuckling kind of player. Atlanta, I think the problem more than anything else, yeah, they don't have a pass rush, but their biggest problem, I don't think they're well coached. Bucs and Texans. Texans were awful in week 1. Their offense looked putrid. They have got to protect their young quarterback better. They have got to get their offense rolling. They've got to get it rolling in terms of balance, in terms of explosiveness. They have a defense, but they need to get the offense running. This is a very big game for the Texans, who were disappointing against the Rams. They need to win in the worst way. Bucs are playing this game, I think, with a little bit of house money. Chargers at 1-0 against the Raiders at 1-0. Pete gets a win in New England in week 1. They're very, very highly touted young running back. They gave him 18 carries. He had a rough day. Did score a touchdown. He'll get better and better. Chargers have another one. They have a young running back. He did not have a great day in week 1 either. They both were inside 40 yards. They'll both get a lot better. And the Chargers are well coached. The Raiders are going to be well coached. And obviously, those battles in the NFC West are going to be terrific. That's your second game. So you have 2 games on Monday night. Bucs at the Texans. Chargers at the Raiders. Now, as we said, week 2, in some places they act like they're never going to win a game. In Detroit, they're going to be crazy this week. Show us what you are, what we are. Show us we're the real Lions, that we're not falling apart. Show us where's our offense, where's our quarterback, where's our running back, where's our explosiveness. Miami, is there anything left? Tua needs to make a statement. The head coach needs to make a statement. Hill has to show he cares. Giants, offensive line. Better play from Wilson. Get the ball to your explosive wide receiver. Show some dynamic input from the coaching staff, which never, ever looks like they are ahead of the opponent in the play calling department, ever. They always look like they are running a poor second to whoever they're matched up against. And they are so bland in what they do that it gets tiring. Kansas City. We have watched this team week in, week out. And I know people are tired of Kansas City. They've had Kansas City shoved down their throat for more than half a decade. And the team has been brilliant. The head coach has been brilliant. The quarterback has been brilliant. The defensive coordinator has been tremendous. Jones has been brilliant. And a lot of times Kelsey's been brilliant. They have been champions more than once. What they've established, what they have done, they have a legacy that will last forever. There's no question. Are they done? Are they done? Is there life in the Chiefs? Are they still a title contender, or have they now, has the sun gone down on that brilliant Kansas City run? We start to get the answers in Kansas City this week against the defending champions, who are not perfect by a long shot. But is this a game Kansas City can win? Yes. It's a game Kansas City needs to win for their own psyche. Now, can they respond from 0-2? Absolutely. I wouldn't want to be the team, Giants, that plays them at 0-2. Giants in prime time. And they'll come ready to play. That's next week's story. This week's story is, do they beat the Eagles in week number 2? Do the Lions show that they're still the Lions who had become the most explosive team in the league the last couple of years? Do the Dolphins have any fight in them at all? Or have they abandoned this coaching staff and this head coach, this very different head coach? Have they completely just turns him out and really sends him packing. We start to get the answers for that this week. So when you don't win in the NFL, every week, the intensity grows, especially if you're a team with expectations. And the pressure builds and builds and builds on these players and on these coaches. It's the one thing about the NFL. There's no weeks off. Mike Francesa newsletter. Sign up for the free Mike Francesa newsletter. You'll get exclusive content, contests, offers. Go to MikeFrancesAPodcast.com and sign up. And remember, it's free. That's it. Now, I tell you about the Bud Rivers football squares, which are a very good deal, a nice little bonus. And you can have some fun with it, and it doesn't cost you anything. Players who place a qualifying same-game parlay of at least $10 on eligible NFL or NCAA football games will receive one standard entry into the weekly squares game. You can get 2, you can get 3, you can get 4, depending on the size of your wager. Winning standard squares will be awarded a prize of a $20 bonus bet. See app and website for more details. So check that out. You know, it's funny, the NFL season moves like nothing else. Whatever season, and the other seasons are very different. And you can equate it to where one game is like 10 baseball games. But the NFL, it's like, hey, welcome to the curtain raiser. It's week 1. Next thing is, here we are at week 5. Here we are at week 10. Here we are at Thanksgiving. Here we are as we come down the stretch and we're doing playoff possibilities. 3 weeks left in the regular season. Who's alive? Who's not? It goes so quickly. It moves at an incredible pace. And that's why it makes September, without question, the fastest month. Now, when you get older, every month moves quickly. And when you were a kid, a day seemed like to last forever. And now, a month goes by like that. But September just flies by. It is already the 12th day of September. It's remarkable how quickly it goes by. Nothing rockets past like the NFL regular season. And with it goes hopes and dreams and jobs and everything else, because you're here and gone very quickly in the NFL. Very, very quickly. All right, let's do a couple of emails before we bid you adieu. Let me get a couple of them up. Let's see what you have on your mind today. Okay. Remember, send them to MikeFrancesAPodcast@gmail.com. This is from Moss. When will Harbaugh start being on the hot seat for wasting this legendary quarterback and having multiple blown fourth quarter leads? I think Harbaugh is a very good coach. I wouldn't call him a great coach, but I would call him a very good coach. And we're talking about Ravens Harbaugh, not Jim. So obviously, Lamar had to refine his game. He has refined it to where he clearly can win, and neither he nor the Ravens have been able to put their best foot forward. They've lost some very tough playoff games. Last year, a perfect example. They were the best team in the league last year. I don't have any issues saying that. I feel completely confident that they were the best team in the league last year. But the best team in the league can lose tight games, and they did. Is there pressure on Harbaugh from a standpoint of what? Winning another Super Bowl? Yes, but not the kind that will get him fired or anything. He's got that job for as long as he wants it. Sean, could you see Parsons having the same impact as Reggie White did? No, I don't think he will. I don't think he will have that impact. I think he will be a very important player for them. I think they could be a Super Bowl team this year without any question, but I don't think it will be the same as Reggie White had. Who was the worst New York Giant GM? I can fill in the blanks after that. Um, Let me just say this about the Giants without pinpointing any one person. The Giants have really, ever since their decision to jettison Tom Coughlin, and I understand why they did it. They said, "Hey, you've had 2 straight losing seasons, 1 more, and we're gonna make a change." Was one owner more compelled to make a change than the other? That doesn't matter. The bottom line is he did have 3 straight losing seasons, and really it's a turn of events that cost them because the Giants were unlucky. If that team had won, just had a winning season, Coughlin would have stayed, and I think their fortunes would have churned upwards dramatically from there because he's a terrific coach, as he has proved. Terrific coaches can go through bad periods. I mean, it happens. Players get old, players get hurt, players move on, other players don't work out. It happens. But they wound up really then searching, and they've put themselves in a position where every move, whether they have been the right move or the wrong move, they've been bad and they've been unlucky. And that's a tough combo to really go up against. When you've been poor in performance and really bad, and you've also been unlucky, it's a tough combination. I do not think that these guys now who are running this team are anything special. I don't think they're dreadful. I don't think they're good. I think their futures are in the balance. I'd say you have a much better chance they're gonna be gone than they stay. But when you keep turning this over, it is very hard to find the right combination. And then when you have any issues, if you have any issues in other places in the franchise, it's a problem too. So there's a lot there. And frankly, I think things remain very unsettled with the Giants. I think they do. This is from Mike. In your many interviews with Eli Manning, has he ever mentioned if Kurt Warner helped him in his development? Yes, he was he's always been complimentary towards Warner. And let me say this about Warner. Warner handled his situation here about as well as anybody could handle a situation. He could have complained. He could have felt that he was treated very unfairly. They had a winning record when they sat him down. He's Kurt Warner. I mean, I used to have him on a lot during that time, and he handled things just superbly. But if you go watch his story, and if you watch his movie, American Underdog, which is a really good movie, and you realize what this guy had to overcome to become a Super Bowl champion, to become a Super Bowl MVP, and to be a Hall of Famer. Remember, this is an undrafted quarterback who banged around the Arena League, who had a fight to just get a chance to play in college, who couldn't get anyone to look at him in the pros, who all of a sudden, and I remember this, female who was always close to our program. He was always close to the Mike and Mad Dog program, and I've always maintained a close relationship with Dick Vermeil, who I have the highest regard for. And we had Dick on right afterwards, and we asked, as we expected, "Hey, you lost Trent Green. What are you doing?" And he's like, "We're going with Warner." And we were like, "Dick, did you fall down and hit your head? You need to go out and get a veteran quarterback. You need to go out and get somebody to run this team. Look at the skill position." And he was like, "We're going to give this guy a chance." And we're everyone was the same in the NFL. Everyone was like, "You got to be kidding me. They got to go out and get a quarterback." And we all know what happened. I mean, it was one of the great underdog stories in the history of American sport. It's remarkable what he accomplished in his career. Remarkable. I mean, if you're not familiar with that story, then rent the movie. It is an incredible story, and that's why he's a special player. And I would say, I don't know if I think Johnny Unitas was drafted. I have to go back and look. I know he was cut. He was released. But I think he was drafted. I have to go back and check for sure to go back to that and see where he was drafted. Because I wanna call one of the greatest undrafted player in the history of the league. I just gotta make sure that Johnny Unitas wasn't, who's the father of all modern quarterbacks, wasn't a free agent. In those days, things were very different, obviously. The draft wasn't the same way it was in modern times, but, because he was released by Pittsburgh. So, but I don't know if he was drafted or not, or he went there as a free agent. I have to go back and look at that. But like I said, the draft was extremely different than it was in modern time. But Warner was sensational. His career is a remarkable triumph, an incredible story. It really is. Unitas was drafted. Thanks, Mons. Okay, he was drafted. Then I would clearly call one of the greatest undrafted player in the history of the league. I mean, what he accomplished was remarkable. It really was, and especially at the quarterback position. We'll see you later.